John Kerry, you have claimed your most heroic moment in Vietnam came on March the 13th, 1969, in an incident that you called No Man Left Behind. In promoting yourself, you showed over $75 million of advertising relating to the incident on that day on the Bay Hop River. In addition, you closed the Democratic National Convention with that episode. The truth is, John Kerry, you took a small truth and you weaved a huge lie around it. You took the tragedy of other people and you tried to portray yourself as a hero in circumstances where your conduct was dishonorable and your actions were cowardly.
The event of March 13th, 1969, began with an early operation. There were 4 boats on that operation originally that took troops into an area of VC Village up the Bay Hop River and another canal. After the operation was over, early afternoon, we were exiting the river. There were 5 boats in the formation. Our boat, the PCF-3, was leading the column on the left side of the river. Kerry's boat was leading the column on the right side of the river. As we passed through the fish stakes in the river, a mine went off under our boat.
The 3-boat lifted approximately 6 feet out of the water.
All I remember is the start of the blast going up, and then I was knocked out. When I woke up, the radar was on my chest.
At the time that the mine was detonated under the 3-boat, the 94 boat fled the scene.
I seen a boat going up the river, taking off up the river. As I was asking them, where's that boat going? And I didn't know the officers at that time. I didn't know his name was Kerry or nothing.
He left us after the 3-boat had been mined and went on downriver out of the kill zone.
I could hear our boats firing, laying down suppressive fire.
The 23 boat and my boat, the 51 boat, immediately put fire, automatic weapons fire, on the left bank of the river in case there is an ambush in conjunction with the mine.
We weren't sure what happened, so we automatically opened fire on our side of the bank.
The guns were fired for approximately a minute, maybe something just less than that, and about the same time as we stopped firing, when we realized that there was no fire coming from either bank.
It had been about 40 seconds. We didn't fire long because they told us to stop firing.
We didn't have any fire. I shut down my guns. The guns on the other boats shut down.
When it becomes apparent within 40 to 60 seconds that we are not receiving enemy fire, the 23 boat goes to the aid of the 2 men blown off the 3 boats that are now in the river to pick them up. I direct my boat to go to the 3 boat. I get on the 3 boat, administer aid as best I can to the 4 wounded men.
We were a big, fat target. If there was any fire, I really think that we would have been seriously damaged and seriously hurt.
We were vulnerable, to say the very least, but there was no enemy fire.
So you had 4 boats there, full automatic fire from both banks, and nobody gets hit. Yeah, you will see in the after-action report that Thurlow's boat had 3 bullet holes in it. Those 3 bullet holes came from the previous day's operation, which is documented.
Looking at the reports from the 12th, the 13th, and 14th, absolutely no damage happened to Larry Thurlow's boat on the 13th. His 3 bullet holes were received on the 12th.
And when the 3 boat was blown up, Jim Rassman stood up to look across the river to see what happened. At that time, John Kerry's driver hit the throttles, the boat took off, Jim Rassman toppled over the side.
I noticed another person in the water, and so I moved away from the 3 boat and moved over toward that person to pick him up out of the water. That person ended up being Lieutenant Rassman, and I got within about 30 feet of his location, and that's when the 94 boat came back and pulled right in front of me, and that's when Kerry pulled Rassman out of the water. When he transferred onto my boat, he told me, John Kerry told me that he was suffering from a shrapnel wound to the hip and a possible broken arm. There was no blood. There was a towel or a white t-shirt or some sort of a rag or what have you that was wrapped around his right forearm. That was the only evidence that there was of any possible injury. I took John Kerry to the Coast Guard cutter. I believe it's the Spencer, and I dropped him off there for medical attention, and I went back to the LST.
John Kerry reported these incidents to the United States Navy in this report, dated March the 14th, 1969.
The 13 March incident report was sent at 11:20 in the evening aboard the Coast Guard cutter, the Spencer. The language in the report automatically drew our attention to John Kerry's authorship of this report. I did a further analysis on this reporting because it seemed strange. It seemed like the OTC, who was Larry Thurlow, should have written this report, but he says he didn't. I then did a timeline on each of the OINCs, the officers in charge of the swift boats, to see who was where and when. This report came from the Coast Guard cutter. John Kerry was the only swift boat skipper on the Spencer at the time that this message was drafted and sent. My conclusion in this area on the 13 March incident, John Kerry wrote the after-action report.
John Kerry presented a totally false report to the United States Navy, reporting 5,000 meters of fire that existed nowhere except on his piece of paper.
If there was gunfire down the river, they all left after Kerry came back to pick up Rasmussen, because when we went down the river, there was no gunfire.
There were close to 60 men on these 5 boats, 60 men on 5 50-foot boats, and not one of them was wounded.
In this report, he claimed that there was 5,000 meters of fire, or 3.2 miles of fire, which he said came from both banks in a canal that was 75 yards wide.
Had there been enemy fire, something would have been hit. A boat would have been hit. One of the 60 men that were on these boats would have been hit, but there wasn't.
The claim was that we were under fire, under hostile fire from both banks at the point in time when Kerry was rescuing Rasmussen. And I'm here to tell you emphatically that there was no hostile fire whatsoever.
Now, he had said that he had gone through 5,000 meters of fire, turned around and come back to pick up Rasmussen. How then did we then go back over the same route that he had just gone through all this fire and never received one round of fire at all? We were there. We saw it. There was absolutely no fire coming from either bank